There is a moment most people have never noticed. You walk outside, maybe it's morning, maybe late afternoon. The air is still doing whatever the air does at that hour. And somewhere above you, without warning, a crow calls out. You don't stop. You don't look up. You keep moving because that's what people do. The sound registers somewhere in the back of your mind and dissolves into everything else. The traffic, the wind, the general noise of a world that seems entirely indifferent to your presence. But here's what's actually happening in that moment. That call is not random. It is not ambient. It is not the crow doing what crows do in the way that rain does what rain does. It is a message, directed, specific, and deliberately transmitted. And the subject of that message is you, not humans in general, not the vague category of large bipeds that sometimes drop food. You, the person who walks this particular route at this particular hour, the person who paused near that specific tree 14 months ago and did something the crow decided to remember. Researchers who have spent years systematically decoding crow vocalizations have arrived at a conclusion that most people are not prepared for. Crows do not simply communicate. They communicate about individuals. They build reputations. They store them. They transmit them. And they update them over time with a consistency that most humans never apply to anything. Tonight, we are going to go deep into what that actually means. We are going to look at the architecture of crow language, the neuroscience of how they encode and share information, the social networks through which that information travels, and what all of it says about the relationship between crows and the specific human they have been quietly observing. Stay until the end, because the last thing we cover, what researchers found when they mapped the full scope of individual recognition inside crow communities, is something that does not leave you after this video ends. Before we get into the science, if you're new here, this channel exists because crow behavior deserves more than a fun fact. Every video we make goes deep. The research, the implications, what it actually means for the way you move through the world and understand the animals that share it with you. If that's what you're looking for, subscribe. We put out new videos every week, and what's coming next is going to be worth being here for. Now, back to what crows are saying. Most people, when they think about crow vocalizations at all, assume they are dealing with something relatively simple. Alarm calls when there is danger, contact calls to maintain the group, maybe some territorial signaling when another crow gets too close. That picture is not wrong. It is just radically, almost embarrassingly incomplete. What researchers at the University of Washington found when they began systematically studying crow vocalizations over multiple years is something that reframes the entire question. The issue was never whether crows communicate. Of course they communicate. The issue was what the content of that communication actually is and how specific it gets. The answer changed everything. Crows don't just call, they refer. They produce distinct vocalizations not just in response to general categories of threat or context, but in response to specific individuals, specific humans. The crow above your yard is not producing a general human alert signal. It is producing a vocalization that encodes information about you. And that vocalization is interpretable by every other crow within earshot. John Marsloff and his team at the University of Washington demonstrated this through a now famous series of controlled masking experiments. Researchers wore specific rubber masks while capturing and banding crows, then observed crow behavior toward those same masks in subsequent encounters. What they found was that crows scolded the threatening mask for years after a single negative encounter. Not weeks, years. And neighboring crows, birds that had never personally interacted with anyone wearing that mask, learned to scold it too through observation and vocal cueing. The information moved through the population. The reputation persisted and spread independently of the original experience. What you assumed was ambient noise was a broadcast, and you were the subject. Let's start with the underlying structure of how crow communication actually works, because understanding the architecture changes what you hear when you walk outside. Crows produce somewhere between 20 and 40 distinct vocalizations, depending on the population and the methodology of the study. But counting discrete call types is the wrong way to approach this, and researchers who started there quickly realized it. The number misses the point entirely. What Cornell Lab of Ornithology researchers and others have documented is that crow communication is compositional. Crows do not simply cycle through a fixed set of signals the way an alarm system runs through preset tones. They combine calls, they vary rhythm and repetition. They alter the acoustic structure of individual calls depending on context, audience, and the specific information being transmitted. A single call type can carry meaningfully different information depending on how it is sequenced, how quickly it is repeated, who is producing it, and what just happened in the 30 seconds before it was made. Think of it not as a vocabulary, but as a syntax. The calls are not the meaning. The arrangement is the meaning. The alarm call alone illustrates this. American crows have at least 4 documented variants of the alarm vocalization. Researchers have identified distinct calls associated with aerial predators, with terrestrial threats approaching from ground level, with human presence in familiar low-risk territory, and with human presence in the immediate vicinity of an active nest site. Each variant is acoustically distinguishable. Each produces measurably different behavioral responses in surrounding birds. Some cause other crows to take flight. Some cause them to approach and mob. Some cause them to freeze and watch. Which means that when a crow sees you walking toward its tree in April, the sound it makes is not noise. It is a precise behavioral instruction issued to every crow within range, and those crows respond to that instruction based on what it tells them about the specific nature of the threat. The question that follows is the one that matters. What instruction is the crow giving when it sees you? And the answer to that depends entirely on what the crow already knows about you specifically. Which means we need to talk about memory. Here is where it gets personal. Crows recognize individual human faces, not general silhouettes, not body size or gait alone. Faces. This has been demonstrated conclusively across multiple peer-reviewed studies using controlled experimental designs, and it holds up under conditions designed to isolate facial recognition from other possible cues. But facial recognition alone is not the finding that changes things. The finding that changes things is what crows do with that recognition once they have it. When a crow that has formed an assessment of you encounters you, it does not simply react internally. It vocalizes in a way that encodes that assessment. And that vocalization is interpretable by other crows who are present or within earshot. The crow is not just recognizing you, it is announcing you. It is transmitting your file. Researchers observed this directly when they tracked crow behavioral and vocal responses to previously encountered humans versus humans the birds had never seen. Birds that had been treated neutrally by a specific person produced measurably different vocalizations near that person compared to birds that had experienced a threatening encounter with the same individual. The acoustic difference was consistent and persistent. It did not fade after a few weeks or a season. Researchers documented these differentiated responses years after the original encounter took place. And here is the part that most people find genuinely difficult to absorb, even after accepting everything that came before it. Those vocalizations were socially transmitted. Young crows that were raised in the area and had never personally encountered a specific human, nonetheless, learned to produce threat-associated vocalizations near that human. They acquired this response through observation and through the vocal behavior of older birds. They inherited the reputation. This means your crow reputation is not something that resets when the bird that formed it dies or moves on. It propagates. It is taught. It moves forward through time in a population that you may never directly interact with again. You have a crow reputation right now. It exists in this neighborhood, in this city, among birds you have never consciously noticed. It is being maintained and updated in real time. And it will be passed to birds that have not yet been born. Researchers did not expect to find this. When Marslove's team extended their work into neuroscience and ran brain imaging studies on crows that had been exposed to faces previously associated with threat, they were looking for evidence of emotional memory encoding. They found it: activation in regions analogous to the human amygdala and hippocampus, areas involved in threat detection, emotional weighting, and long-term memory consolidation. That part confirmed what behavioral evidence had already suggested. But what the imaging revealed beyond that was not anticipated. Simultaneously with the memory and threat regions, researchers found activation in areas associated with social cognition and communication. These are regions that do not simply process threat. They process the social meaning of threat. They are involved in computing how information about a threat should be communicated to others and what form that communication should take. The crow wasn't just scared, it was already thinking about how to tell someone. This is not a trivial distinction. It means that the neurological event of perceiving you, in the wrong context, is not a two-step process where the crow first registers the threat and then decides to vocalize. The perception and the communicative impulse are simultaneous. They are the same event at the level of the brain. The call and the intention to call are not sequential. They arise together, which means that warning others is not a behavior the crow performs in response to fear. Warning others is part of what fear is for a crow. It is baked into the architecture of their threat perception at the neurological level. And what comes next is what changes everything. Crow communication is not uniform across populations, it is regional. And this has implications for what it means to live inside a particular crow community. Studies comparing crow populations across geographically separated regions of North America have documented consistent and reproducible differences in call structure, timing patterns, repetition rates, and compositional tendencies between groups. These are not random individual variation. They are stable population-level patterns that function in the most precise sense of the word, like dialects. A crow from one city produces vocalizations that are acoustically distinct from a crow raised in a neighboring region. When individuals from different populations interact, researchers have found evidence of reduced immediate comprehension. The birds have to calibrate. They have to learn each other's version of the language before the full information transfer becomes possible.
I know,
What this means for you is specific. The crow communication network you live inside is not a universal system that operates the same everywhere. It is a local system. It has its own acoustic conventions, its own transmission patterns, its own accumulated history of the individuals and events that have shaped it. Your neighborhood has its own language. And within that language, you are not an anonymous presence. You are a recurring topic with an established profile. Now consider what happens to information once it enters that network. Crow communities function as distributed information systems. Individual birds are not isolated processors. They are nodes in a network, continuously gathering information about their environment, encoding it in vocalization and behavior, and transmitting it to other nodes through direct interaction and observation. Researchers who have tracked individually marked crows across extended time periods have documented something consistent and striking about how reputational information moves through these networks. Negative information, specifically information associated with threat or unpredictable behavior from a specific individual, spreads faster than neutral information. It reaches more birds, it persists longer, and it generalizes beyond the original context in which it was formed. A crow that had a single threatening encounter with a person in one part of its range will produce threat-associated vocalizations near that person in contexts that are entirely safe and non-threatening. The association is not context-dependent, It is person-dependent. The crow does not think, "This person was dangerous near my nest, so I will be cautious near the nest." The crow thinks, "This person," and that association travels. The memory doesn't just persist, it generalizes, and it propagates outward through the network to birds who were never present for the original event. You may have done something you don't remember, walked too close to a nest site 3 springs ago, made a sudden movement that startled a roosting bird, looked directly at a crow in a way that read as aggressive within their behavioral vocabulary. Something small, something you filed away as nothing, or never filed at all. That moment is still in circulation. This is the point where we stop talking about crows and start talking about you. Because everything that has just been laid out changes something fundamental about what it means to move through the world, not in a dramatic way, not in a way that requires you to do anything differently tomorrow morning, but in a way that, once you see it, you cannot unsee. The crow in your yard, the one you pass without much thought on your way to the car, has been watching you for longer than you have been watching it. It knows your schedule with a precision that would unsettle you if a human demonstrated it. It knows when you leave. It knows when you return. It knows the difference between the days when you move quickly and the days when you move slowly. It has built a behavioral model of you based on direct observation over an extended period of time, and it has made a judgment about your character based on evidence you did not know was being collected. The crow does not need your acknowledgement. It does not require your awareness of its presence to continue its assessment. It does what it does, whether you are paying attention or not, whether you believe in its intelligence or not, whether you find this uncomfortable or not, and it has been talking about you. To birds you have never seen, in a language you did not know existed, about encounters you may not remember, building and updating and transmitting a portrait of you that circulates through a network that has no off switch and no delete function. Most of us move through our days inside a comfortable assumption of anonymity in the small moments, the ordinary Tuesday morning walk, the shortcut through the parking structure, the moment of impatience near the trash can where a crow happened to be feeding, the time you waved your arms to move a bird off your car, the afternoon you threw something in the general direction of a crow that had been making noise outside your window. You didn't think those moments were being witnessed. You certainly didn't think they were being recorded and transmitted and taught to other birds. The crows remember. They encoded those moments into a system more durable than you realized. They transmitted them to an audience you didn't know you had, which raises a question that has nothing to do with birds and everything to do with who you are when you believe no one is paying attention, when the moment feels too small to matter, when the witnesses seem like background. Remember what we said at the beginning of this video? That crow calling out as you walked outside? We told you it was a message about you, and now you understand what that means in full. That call was not a single event. It was one transmission in a system that has been running continuously, in your neighborhood, in your city, across every place you have regularly moved through, for as long as crows have lived near humans. A system with no central authority, no coordinating intelligence, no design or intention at the level of the network. Just thousands of individual birds doing what their neurology was built to do: perceive, assess, remember, and communicate. And somewhere inside that system, there is a file on you. It is not written anywhere. It does not exist in any database or on any server. It lives in the memory of specific birds, in the vocalizations they produce when you enter their range, in the behavioral adjustments they make when they see you coming, and in the responses of birds you have never personally encountered, who have nonetheless been briefed about you by birds who have. This file has been accumulating for years. It contains every morning you walked to your car without looking up, every time you paused near a crow without making any threatening movement, every moment of accidental kindness,
It is the constant
like dropping
overseer day,
food near a
isn't it?
bird without realizing it, every moment of careless aggression, however small, every instance of eye contact, Every time you moved in a way the crow found predictable, and every time you moved in a way that surprised it, the crows have been assembling a portrait of you using a medium you did not know existed, in a language you cannot hear clearly enough to understand, distributed across a network you had no idea you were inside. The question that remains after this video ends is not, what do crows say to each other? We have answered that. The question is what they have decided to say about you. What is in the file? What assessment has been formed, transmitted, and taught to birds that will outlive the ones who first formed it? You will probably never know, but now you know that it exists. Now you know. You know that crow communication is compositional and regional, built on a syntax more complex than most people ever consider. You know that individual humans are recognized, assessed, remembered, and discussed within crow networks across timescales that exceed what most people would find comfortable. You know that your reputation among the crows in your area exists completely independently of your awareness of it, and that it is being maintained and transmitted right now. And you know that somewhere in your neighborhood, a crow you have never properly looked at has a specific vocalization that means you, not humans, not threats in general. You specifically. Here is what I want to know. Have you ever had the feeling that a crow was responding to you as an individual? Not reacting to something in the environment, not alarming at a bird nearby, but specifically directed at you, tracking you as you moved? What was happening in that moment? And what did it feel like to be on the other side of that attention? Leave it in the comments. I read every single one. I'll see you in the next one.